Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is One Piece East Blue Saga, Buggy Side Story Arc, Episode 46, Following the Straw Hat, Little Buggy's Big Adventure. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So basically, the episode starts off with the Straw Hat crew waking up, getting the ship ready to sail in the morning, and playing around a bit before they then end up at breakfast, where Nami idly wonders, after a brief flashback to Orange Town, what happened to Buggy after he was launched by Luffy into the abyss. And then we find that Little Buggy has been on an island and has spent the entire time that basically that we've spent at each of the other arcs building a raft to get him back to his crew. And so Little Buggy launches his raft and is very proud of himself. However, unfortunately, there are a lot of fish about his own size now trying to eat him on the way, so he paddles ferociously until he gets to the next island. And on this next island, he's pretty hungry, so he sees this adorable little yellow chickie that's about his size, and he decides he's going to try to eat the chickie and brings out a fork and knife from goodness only knows where to chase after the little chick. However, the chick has a sibling, and the sibling sees this and brings their parent. So once Buggy catches the chick, the parent decides it's going to try to catch him, and it is several times his size. And so Buggy, of course, runs away and decides to set a trap to try to capture the big chicken, or big bird. I don't think it's a chicken, it's blue. The mother is blue. And he hides behind a rock. The big blue bird comes, looks at the trap that is very poorly disguised, figures out what it is, and turns the trap around on Buggy by basically breaking the trap while not getting caught in it. Buggy comes out all confident that he's gotten the big chicken, or big bird, and then ends up captured himself. The big bird goes to eat him, however, Buggy tastes awful, so he's dumber than a bird and gets spit out to the next island, which happens to be Gaiman's Island, which we saw in a previous episode with all of the kind of mix and matched animals on it. And Gaiman at first mistakes Buggy for a poacher, thinking that he's after the island's treasure, which is the animals, and so they get into a battle until the misunderstanding is resolved, at which point then Gaiman invites Buggy for a drink, and they sit down, they drink, the animals party around a fire, and they talk about how, they both used to be pirates, and Buggy is so having such a good time with Gaiman that he ends up inviting Gaiman to his crew, and Gaiman reminisces about Luffy's visit and how he had met a young man who had also invited him to join his crew, and how there's like some really good kids out there. And Buggy agrees that, oh, that's so great to hear that there are nice kids out there. I just met a terrible one. And he reminisces about his fight with Luffy back in the day, not realizing they're talking about the same person. And Gaiman the next morning helps Buggy make a raft so that he can leave the island, but forgets to tell him that there are some weird creatures out in the sea. And so as Buggy starts his journey on the new raft, he is attacked by a giant crab. And this crab breaks his raft, and Buggy has to hold on to one of the debris, otherwise he will sink. Luckily, he is a little Buggy, so he's pretty light. And this is when we have Alvida coming along and fishing Buggy out of the water after defeating the crab, and letting Buggy know that she's looking for a certain man, and pulls out Luffy's new wanted poster, which immediately Buggy starts to fisticuff towards because he is very upset about seeing Luffy there, but that is where we end the episode with Alvida recruiting Buggy on her hunt for Luffy. Now that we've been reminded about what happened, it's now time to rank the episode, and as always, we'll be ranking on our mostly objective ranking list first, followed by the personal ranking list. So, because this was really a fun episode, it regrettably had no main plot significance or value. It was a filler episode, which is -4 points, so we start off in the negatives. And then also, regrettably, the only real objective rank value that could be given positively was a +3 for Alvida's glow up being revealed. She is no longer the very wide, very freckled woman that she once was. She is now tall and slim and no freckles or flaws to be seen. So she definitely glowed up, and that is revealed in this episode, but it still leaves us at a -1, as the lowest score possible is a 1. That does make this a 1 out of 10 episode. But it is in first place because it is the first episode of the current arc, and it is following the Straw Hat, Little Buggy's Big Adventure. Now, this episode is one of the examples of why I have a personal list in addition to a mostly objective list. Mostly objective, this was a 1 out of 10. Personally, though, 1, I love Buggy. I think Buggy is one of the best characters, always amusing, and bitty Buggy is absolutely adorable, so very fun. The comedic value of this episode was great, from the initial leaving the island and getting tried, or the fish trying to chomp on him. Then we had the second island with the bird saga, which was adorable and hilarious, that he was outsmarted by a bird. I loved it. And then, we reconnect with Gaiman, which is another throwback to another character. Not one that I'm as fond of, but still, then they both reminisce about their time with Luffy, one positively, one negatively. And then the reunion with Alvida and the glow up. And kind of interspersed with this is, of course, the little slice of life scene with the ship, where we have, at the start of the episode, them raising the anchor, Zoro getting baited into a game of tag with Usopp and Luffy, then breakfast with Nami, where she brings up Buggy while Luffy steals Usopp's food. Then about midway through the episode, as Buggy is flying from Island 2 to Island 3 with Gaiman, after being spit out by the bird, which he found shocking that he tasted that bad. Um, we also have a scene where Luffy's looking at like a crab that got onto the boat at one of the ports they were in, and he then hears Buggy screaming as we see Buggy flying through the sky in the background. And then at the very, very end of the episode, all of the guys are sleeping in the same room, and Nami's kind of in her own room listening to them argue in their sleep. And she comments on how skilled they are to be able to have that argument in their sleep. So, very funny. Nothing really negative to say about the episode from an entertainment value, personal perspective. And again, I love itty bitty baby teeny Buggy. I mean, regular Buggy is awesome. He's my favorite. But little bitty Buggy, even better. Even better. So, needless to say, this was a 10 out of 10 for me because it was focused on my favorite character. There were no negatives that I could find on a personal level. And in addition to my favorite character, it's my favorite version of my favorite character, which is Little Bitty Baby Buggy. So, 10 out of 10 for me personally. And that also puts this in first place, which is following the Straw Hat, Little Buggy's Big Adventure. So that now brings us to our saga ranking so far, where we're ranking each of the arcs against each other. On our mostly objective ranking, we had the Romance Dawn arc in first place at 86.67%, Arlong Park arc in second at 76.67%, Orange Town arc is in third at 76%, Baretti arc in fourth at 68.33%, Syrup Village arc currently in fifth at 64%, and then the Buggy Side Story arc only has a 1 out of a possible 20 currently. However, on the personal side, Arlong Park arc is in first place with 76%. Orange Town arc, which was Buggy's introduction, is at 74%. The Romance Dawn arc is in third at 66.67%. Baretti arc in fourth at 52.5%. Syrup Village arc currently in last place for me at 49%. And then the Buggy Side Story arc currently has a perfect score of 10 out of 20. So that now brings us to the series ranking so far, where we will be ranking each of the sagas against each other. And so far on our mostly objective ranking, the East Blue Saga has a score of 32 out of a possible 80. Meanwhile, on the personal ranking side, the East Blue Saga has a score of 21 out of a possible 80. But with that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Piece East Blue Saga, Buggy Side Story Arc, Episode 46, Following the Straw Hat, Little Buggy's Big Adventure. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.